You know, we all think we know the king of the dinosaurs, but what if I told you there is a rival to that throne? Today, we're going to dig into the story of this incredible southern giant that could give the tyrant lizard king a serious run for its money. Seriously, for generations, one name has just completely dominated our imagination when we think of the ultimate prehistoric predator. But what if the king we all know and love wasn't the only one with a claim to the crown? It's time to meet the challenger. So let's set the stage here. For almost 100 years, T-Rex was it, the undisputed champ. It was the gold standard for giant predators, a cultural icon that basically roared its way into all of our collective nightmares. It was the final boss of the Cretaceous, period. And then 1993 happened, and everything changed. An amateur fossil hunter just out exploring the badlands of Patagonia stumbled onto something that would send absolute shockwaves through the world of paleontology. A new contender had just entered the ring. This discovery wasn't just another fossil. It was the arrival of a new heavyweight on the scene. From the heart of South America, a challenger appeared, and it was ready to stake its claim as one of the largest carnivores to ever walk the earth. Okay, first things first, let's get the name right. It's Giganotosaurus. And yeah, gigantic is a pretty perfect description, but the name actually means giant southern lizard. It's a shout out to where it was found in Patagonia, a little detail that gets lost sometimes. And let's be clear, this was the undisputed king of its own turf. It was discovered by Rubén Darío Carolini, that's why its full species name is Giganotosaurus carolinii, and this absolute monster ruled the floodplains of ancient Argentina about 97 million years ago. But here's the real twist in the story. These two titans never, ever met. Giganotosaurus was long gone by the time T-Rex showed up. We're talking about a 30 million year gap. That's insane. They were kings of completely different eras, rulers of separate empires, divided by a literal ocean of time. So, since they never got to throw down in real life, let's do the next best thing. Let's have a hypothetical showdown. We're going to break down the tail of the tape and see how this southern giant really measures up to the legendary T-Rex. Who's bigger? Who's faster? Let's find out. All right, this is the question, right? The one that kicked off the entire debate. Could anything actually be bigger than a T-Rex? Well, when the paleontologists finally pieced all the bones together, the sheer scale of Giganotosaurus was just breathtaking. It measured up to 13 meters, that's 43 feet, from its snout to the tip of its tail. To give you some perspective, that's longer than a school bus. So how does that stack up against the king? Well, a really big T-Rex, like the famous fossil Sioux, clocks in at around 12 meters, or 40 feet. So round one goes to the challenger. Giganotosaurus was definitely longer. Okay, but what about weight? Bulk? Well, once again, Giganotosaurus has the edge here, tipping the scales at around 10 tons, compared to T-Rex's 9. So not only was it longer, it was heavier than the Tyrant King too. Now this is where it gets really interesting. Speed. You'd think the bigger animal would be slower, right? Nope. Giganotosaurus seems to have been built for agility. It could probably hit speeds of over 20 miles per hour, leaving the bulkier 10-mile-per-hour T-Rex in its dust. Okay, so it had size and speed on its side. That's a huge advantage. But in any real fight, you gotta think about intelligence. Was this southern giant some kind of brilliant tactician? Let's take a closer look at that head. The skull was long and narrow, with this rough, almost armored-looking texture on top. And those horn-like crests it had over each eye, just pure intimidation. It absolutely looked the part of a killer. But here's the kicker. Inside that terrifying skull was a brain only about half the size of a T-Rex's, relative to its body. I mean, we're talking about a brain the size and shape of a banana. This was a creature of brawn, not brains. So what do we have? A bigger, faster, but let's say less brainy predator. All of this points to a completely different hunting strategy. This wasn't about brute force and cunning. This was about being a whole different kind of killing machine. Let's dive into the slicer versus the crusher. This is where the two predators are just night and day. T-Rex was the crusher. Its teeth were like railroad spikes, made to shatter solid bone. Giganotosaurus, on the other hand, was the slicer. Its mouth was full of long, serrated blades, perfect for causing deep, devastating wounds. It didn't need to crush, it just needed to make its prey bleed out. Which leads us to our really fascinating question. The main meal on the menu in Giganotosaurus's world were these colossal sauropods, things like Argentinosaurus, which could weigh over 50 tons. So how could one predator, even a giant one, take down an animal that massive with just slicing bites? Well, the answer might be teamwork. Now, we haven't found a Gigantosaurus graveyard or anything, but fossils of its close cousin, Maposaurus, were discovered all together in a group. This is a tantalizing clue that points to a terrifying possibility. These giants hunted in packs, a coordinated attack force that could take down the largest land animals of all time. So, in the end, this whole who was bigger debate kind of misses the point. Giganotosaurus wasn't some T-Rex knockoff. It was a totally unique and deadly predator, a master of its own environment and a true king in its own right. It ruled a lost world millions of years before the tyrant lizard king ever existed. Which, of course, leaves us with the ultimate what if, the slicer versus the crusher, speed versus raw power, a pack hunter versus a solitary tyrant. They were separated by continents and 30 million years of evolution, but if they had ever met on some prehistoric battlefield, who do you think would have walked away? Now that's something to think about.